Day 11. Only 29 more days to go. Let's make sure that I'm set. It looks like I'm set. So, first question: which number line represents the solution to the inequality? Okay, so let's get that done. So I would solve it. Okay, so let's start solving this. Negative 3x minus 5 less than negative 2. So remember, here is, if you want that story, here's my variable x is being multiplied by negative 3, subtract 5, and then less than negative 2. Using inverse operations, we're going to do plus 5 and divide by negative 3. So, negative 3, by the way. My line, so it's plus 5 first, plus 5, negative 3x, cross out, less equal to positive 3. That's check. Divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3 on this side. So if I divide by a negative on a, what do you call, inequality, remember that we're switching the sign the other way. These two become 1, or x times 1 is just x, and 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. So we're looking for something that represents this. So x is a number greater than negative 1. So negative 1, and it's greater than negative 1 is numbers to the right. So right away, this can be garbage. So it's either A or B, but we know that it's not shaded because there's no equal sign at the bottom, so definitely A. 2, the spinner this says has. Okay, so I'm not the only one who makes mistakes. Has 8 equal side sections. Each section is 1, 2, 3, 4. The arrow on the spinner is spun. What's the probability of the arrow stopping on a section labeled 2? So how many sections do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The probability of landing on 2 is, there's 8 sections, and how many of them are 2? 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 8, which makes our answer C. 3. A representative sample, 50 students from high school. So there's a big high school, only 50 students were surveyed, and this is what they chose as to what classes they're taking. 6 at physics, 10 chemistry, 18 biology, 4 earth science, and 12 health science. Select all statements that are valid based on the survey. So about 20% of the students in high school, at the high school, are taking chemistry. Well, there were 50 students, so let me see. Chemistry, chem. Out of the 50, how many are taking chemistry? 10 out of 50. Is 10 out of 50 what do you call 20%? So if you actually simplify that, that becomes 1/5. And if you divide 1 divided by 5, you actually get 0.2. And you can, in the survey, 20% are taking what do you call chemistry. So it would be about 20% if the survey represents the population. So that's okay. About twice as many students are taking health science than taking physics. So people who are taking health science are 12 out of 50. And people who are taking physics are 6 out of 50. So about twice as many students are taking, yeah, that's right, 12, taking health science, that's correct. So, and then for every 100 students, we would predict that at least 18 are taking physics. So again, the probability of someone taking physics was 6 out of 50. Oh my god, let me just, probability of somebody taking physics, according to the survey, was 6 out of 50, right? So if we multiply that by how many students are in this high school, 150. So for every 50, so if you multiply that by 150, 50 divided by 50 is 1, 150 divided by 50 is 3, and 6 times 3 is 18. Yeah, so if there were 150 students, we can predict that 18 of them would take physics. For every 25 students, we could predict that at least 4 are taking earth science. So let's see, people who are taking earth science. Earth science is 4 out of 50. So if there were 25 students, let me multiply that probability by 25. We can simplify before multiply. 25 divided by 25 is 1, and 50 divided by 25 is 2. So this becomes 4 over 2, which becomes just 2. And then, therefore, that's not true. Okay. The 3, 4. George earns $455. He receives a 20% raise. how can George calculate his new pay? Select all calculations that result in George's new weekly pay rate. Why does this look familiar? All right, so if I were to do this, now we're trying to find out his weekly pay, right? So the one thing we can do the long way is multiply this by 20%, which is 0.2. And if we multiply 455 times 0.2, you get $91, right? So after that, we can have to do 455 plus $91, and his weekly pay would be 546. So he would end up making 546 after a 20% increase. So is there anything that says here multiply by? Well, this one says multiply by 0.20, which is what we did, but it forgot to say plus 91. So this one is definitely a no. This one was half true. Well, anything that says divide, we're going to ignore. Multiply by 1.20. Well, this is the long way of doing it, and the short way of doing it was 455, and multiply that by what? 120%, right? Because he's going to make 100%, which is what he was making, plus 20%, so that makes it 120%. So we have to find what 100%, 120% of 455 is. So we multiply this by 120, and I'll show you that this answer would be the same as that. So in your calculator, 455 times 1.2, and you get 546. So this is definitely true. So that gets our answer. One of these proportions also work. So if you set up a proportion, here's what we have. 100%, right? 100. The percentage is going to be 100 plus 20%, which is 120%. 100% of his salary is what? It's 455. Right? That's 100% of his salary. So we're looking to see what 120% is, right? So that would be, and that represents this new number that I don't know. So this actually would work. So because they match side to side. What's 100% of his salary? 455. What's 120% of his salary? We don't know, and they match, right? So that both top numerators and both denominators are what you call on the same level. Okay. And that's that. And the last one is a no. Five. Which number? Are you sure you didn't do this one? I'm gonna pause this video just because I have a feeling I did this video. No. Let me just go back. Did I do this video? Everything's a blur now. Sorry. Alright, so let's just do it anyway. Where am I? Which number line represents the sum of 1.5 plus -1/2? So obviously, we want to make sure that. So what is 1.5? 1.5 starts at 0, so we have to walk to the right, right? Because we're adding this, so let's represent 1.5. So it's 0, walk to 1.5. So anything that starts at 0 and goes to 1.5 positive is so far good. So A is okay so far. B, no, because it's going backwards. Doesn't make sense. C, it goes positive, but it only goes to 1/2. That doesn't make sense. And D starts at 0 and goes to 1.5. So this is correct. So A and what do you call D so far are good. So that's 1.5, and then plus -1/2 plus 1/2. So you know that if you're adding a negative, you're going this direction. So you were at 0, you went to 1.5, and now you're adding a negative, which means you got to go back 1/2. So let me erase this, and this one makes sense, right? You're at 0 plus 1.5, you go to the right, and then plus negative, which means you go back this way. So the only one that makes sense is D. 6. So I guess I didn't do this one. Which expression is equivalent to that? Maybe I did. Do this trio property. Negative and a positive is a negative. Negative 80x. Negative and negative is a positive. 8 times 3 is 24. Anything that looks like this? Yes. Right. 7. This table shows a proportional relationship between x and y. So it is proportional, and we can confirm. If you see the relationship here, it's times 12, times 12, times 12. Using the value for r, write an equation in the form of y equals rx. So we want to find a constant proportionality, which is k. I don't know why they use r. It should be k. The constant proportionality is y over x. So remember, this is your y. So let's pick these two. Y over x will be 48 over x, which in this case is 4. So k equals 12. To write our equation, remember, it's y equals kx. So let's just substitute y equals, in our case, 12x. And that makes sense, right? So that would be our equation. 8, Dave buys a baseball for $8.15 plus 8% tax. So here's Dave. And then Mel buys a football for $20 plus 8% tax. Write the difference in their values, right? So if you buy a baseball card for $15 and you're going to pay tax, so you can multiply that by 0.08, find the tax. So in this case, the tax would be 0.08 equals $1.20. So that equals, so the tax is 1.20. So the baseball card is 15 plus $1.20, you end up paying 16.20. Those of you who did this straight away, you get the same answer, 16.12. So you get the long way and the short way. For Mel, same thing. He's going to pay 20% tax, so Mel times 0.08, and 20 times 0.08 equals 1.6. So Mel is paying $1.16 tax. So we're going to add the $20 plus a tax, and we're going to pay $21.60. Those of you who did it the short way, 20 times 1.08, you're going to get the answer straight away, 21.60. And so what we want to find the difference. So subtract 2160 minus 16.12. 5, 10 minus 2 is 8, 4, 1, 11 minus 2 is 9. So the difference in price between them is $9.48. Number 9, select all graphs that are proportional relationship between x and x and y. So remember what we talked about? It has to go through the origin. So if it's not going through the origin, even though straight line, it's not proportional. So A, this one is definitely a no. This one, yes, starts at the origin, and it goes there. So it doesn't matter the steepness. It could have been this way, could have been this way, could have been this way, could have been this way. As long as it starts at the origin, straight line, right? So definitely the second one is a proportional relationship. So the second, this one is okay. Third one is also okay. You can clearly tell it starts at the origin. And the fourth one, not okay, because it doesn't start at 0, 0. 10, Shelley incorrectly solved the equation. So she did something wrong. Select all the steps that show an error based on the equation the previous step. So we were to do it, so let's just do it on the side here. The first thing we do is apply the distributive property. So 1/2 times c is 1/2 c. And then half times 6 is 3 equals 7. Does she have that? So yes, so this one is the first step she did apply, no, she didn't apply the distributive property, so this is wrong. Remember, she has 1/2 of c, but instead of 3, she has 6, so step 1 is wrong. Next thing she should have done is subtract 3 from the side, just subtract 3 on this side, so you should have gotten half of c equals, and 7 minus 3 equals 4. So this is wrong too. And then what's the next step after c? After this, we have to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, right? So it's a fraction here. Multiply this by 2 over 1, and multiply this side by 2 over 1. We do that because these two all cross out, right? And isolates our variable, c. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 divided by 1 is just 8. So actually, everything is 1, right? So the answer would have been c equals 8, and c equals 8 should have been just this one, this dot right here. It's the only number that I can put back in the equation and make that equation true. And just to prove it to you, I'm going to go back to the equation. And instead of c, I'm going to erase that. Actually, I won't. I'll just substitute half. And if I put c, 8 for c, I get 8 plus 6 inside. And equals 7. Let's see if that's true. Well, do 8 plus 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. And if you multiply 14 times half, do you get 7? What's half of 14? 7. So 8 is the solution, and that's how you would have left your what do you call, representative solution on the number line. Remember, there's no arrows here, no arrows going left or right or anything like that. It's just a dot because this is an equation. There's only one value that will make that equation true. 11. I have to make this smaller, I guess. So this graph shows a relationship, okay, between the number of hours and the cost of electricity. Okay. Let's see which one is true and false. Point A represents the total cost of electricity when operating the business for 6 hours. So if you use the electricity for 6 hours, this point here shows that we are going to spend $60. True. The cost of electricity is $8 when operating the business for 80 hours. So if we, again, so you can tell right away. So if you were to write this, you can write that. Let's take this point. We can say here that it's $6 hours. How much are we paying for 6 hours? Based on that point. For 6 hours, he's paying $60. Right? So what's the unit rate? If you divide this by 6 and divide this by 6, how much are you paying for 1 hour? You're paying $10 per hour. Right? So I can get that information just from that point. Part B says if you operate it for 80 hours, do you pay $8? That doesn't really make sense, right? So if 1 hour is $10, 1 hour is $10, 80 hours should be $800. So this is false. That doesn't even make sense. The total electricity is $10 when operating for 1 hour. So look at your graph for 1 hour. Is it $10? Do you think that's $10? Well, you can't really tell by the graph, but you can tell by the unit rate which we found. Okay. No, I didn't do this. This is it? 11? Gotta be kidding me. All right. I think you're done. Jeez.